My new neighbor digs in his backyard every night. When I investigate, I find my missing cat's collar buried there. My name is Judith Monroe. I'm 62, and I've lived in Dovetail Creek, Oregon, all my life. After losing my husband 3 years ago, I found a strange comfort in routine. Feeding my cat Millie at sunrise, tending to my tiny garden, sipping lukewarm tea on the porch. Quiet life, predictable. But this year changed everything. It started with the arrival of my new neighbor, Mr. Reed. Tall, thin, too quiet, not in the shy way, more like someone who's hiding the noise in his soul. The first time I saw him dig in his backyard at midnight, I assumed maybe it was a hobby or a broken pipe, but he did it again the next night, and the next, always digging, always covering it up before dawn. Still, I might have ignored it until Millie went missing. If this story resonated with your soul, hit the subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Which country are you listening from? The night air in Dovetail Creek was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. As I sat on my porch, the silence of my widowhood, a familiar companion. 3 years without my husband had carved a routine into my days. Feeding Millie, my tabby cat, at sunrise, tending my garden, sipping tea. But Mr. Reed's arrival next door shattered that rhythm. Tall, thin, with eyes that dodged mine, he wasn't just quiet. He was guarded, like a man burying secrets. I first noticed him digging in his backyard at midnight a week after he moved in, his silhouette hunched under the moon, shovel slicing the earth. I thought it was a one-off, maybe a broken pipe. But the next night, he was there again, in a different corner, always finishing before dawn. The dirt smoothed over like nothing had happened. "Claire, you ever see anything odd about that Reed fella?" I asked my neighbor one morning, leaning over the fence as she watered her roses. Claire, 70 and fond of gossip, raised an eyebrow. "Odd how, Judith?" she said, her voice teasing. "He's just private. Not everyone's chatty like you." "He digs every night," I said, lowering my voice. "Midnight, sometimes later, different spots, covers it up before sunrise. Who does that?" She laughed, brushing dirt from her gloves. "Maybe he's planting garlic. Some folks garden at night, keeps the bugs away." "Garlic doesn't need a new hole every night," I snapped, my cheeks warming. "And he never looks anyone in the eye. He's hiding something." Claire's smile softened, pity creeping in. "You're lonely, Judith. Since Millie's been wandering, you're seeing mysteries where there's none." I stiffened. Millie hadn't come home in 3 days. She'd always sniffed near Reed's fence, her tail twitching like she sensed something. "Millie didn't wander," I said, my voice sharp. "She wouldn't run off." Claire sighed, patting my arm. "Cats do that sometimes. Check the shelters. Don't go making Reed into a villain." I walked back to my house, her words stinging. Lonely, paranoid, was I? Millie's absence was a hole in my heart, her empty food bowl a daily accusation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stood at my kitchen window, curtains parted, watching Reed's backyard. At 12:17 a.m., there he was, flashlight beam dancing, spade biting the earth. He worked fast, precise, a small bag at his side. When he finished, he smoothed the dirt, leaving no trace. My pulse quickened. This wasn't gardening. It was deliberate, secretive. "Who are you, Reed?" I whispered, my breath fogging the glass. I grabbed a notebook, jotting the time and location. Northeast corner, near the oak. The next night, he dug again, southwest now. I recorded it, my hands shaking. A pattern was forming, a rough circle around his yard. Why? What was he burying or hiding? I tried talking to my friend Amos, who ran the hardware store. Over coffee at his shop, I leaned in, keeping my voice low. "Amos, you sold Reed a shovel yet? Or bags, maybe?" Amos, grizzled and skeptical, chuckled. "Judith, you sound like a detective. Guy bought a spade, sure. So do half the folks in Dovetail. What's this about?" "He digs every night," I said, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. "Same time, different spots, and Millie's gone." She was always near his fence before she vanished. Amos's smile faded, but his eyes were gentle. Judith, I know Millie meant a lot, but cats go missing. Reed's just eccentric. Don't let grief turn him into a monster. Eccentric doesn't explain a midnight ritual, I said, my voice tight. Something's wrong, Amos. I feel it. He sighed, stirring his coffee. Feelings ain't proof. You want my advice? Check the woods, the shelters. Millie's probably chasing squirrels. I left, frustration coiling in my chest. No one believed me, but I knew Millie, her soft purr, her habit of curling up on my lap. She wouldn't leave me. And Reed's digging, that careful circle, wasn't random. It felt intentional, like a plan unfolding in the dark. The next night, I watched again, notebook in hand. Reed appeared at 12:43 a.m., flashlight steady, digging near the shed. The bag was there, smaller this time, but he buried it deep, his movements quick, almost nervous. I scribbled it down, my heart pounding. The circle was nearly complete. 5 spots now, each a point on an invisible ring. Was it a ritual, a hiding place? My mind raced with possibilities, each darker than the last. Millie, where are you? I whispered, tears pricking my eyes. I couldn't shake the image of her sniffing Reed's fence, her green eyes curious. Had she seen something? Had he? I wanted to march over, demand answers, but what would I say? Stop digging? He'd laugh, or worse, shut me out. I needed proof, something to make Claire and Amos listen. The next morning, I walked my yard, pacing near Reed's fence, hoping for a clue. The grass was damp, the air heavy with mist. I called Millie's name, my voice breaking. Nothing. But as I turned back, something caught my eye, a glint in the dirt near the fence post, half hidden by weeds. I knelt, my fingers trembling as I brushed the soil away. My breath stopped. It was Millie's collar, the blue one with her bell, buried shallowly, as if tossed there in haste. I clutched it, my chest tightening. Millie, I gasped, tears falling. This wasn't a coincidence. Reed's digging, Millie's disappearance, and now her collar, buried in his yard. My fear hardened into certainty. He'd done something to her. But why? And what else was he hiding in that circle of dirt? I stood, the collar in my fist, and stared at his house. The curtains were drawn, his truck gone. He'd be back tonight, digging again. Unaware I'd found his secret. I could call the sheriff, but what would I say? A collar wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed to know what he was burying, what that circle meant. My grief for Millie burned, but so did my resolve. Reed thought he could hide in the dark, but I was watching now, and I wouldn't stop until I exposed him. If you've ever felt like you were the only one noticing something strange, comment me below. Let's see how many of us are out there, and if you think I'm crazy so far, hit that like button just to keep me grounded. The blue collar with Millie's bell, unearthed near Reed's fence, was a dagger in my heart. I clutched it, standing in my Dovetail Creek yard, grief and fury warring inside me. Reed's nightly digging, those precise, secret holes forming a circle, had taken on a new weight. Millie hadn't run off. Her collar, buried in his yard, screamed his guilt. Claire and Amos called me paranoid. But this was real. I needed more than a collar to confront him, to make the sheriff listen. Reed was away, his truck gone, and daylight was my chance. I waited until noon, the sun high, the neighborhood quiet. My hands shook as I slipped through the gap in Reed's fence, a shovel tucked under my arm. His backyard was ordinary in daylight, grass patchy, shed locked. But the spots he'd dug haunted me. I'd watched him last night, his flashlight steady near the shed, the 5th point in his eerie circle. That's where I'd start. My heart pounded, every rustle making me flinch. If he came back, I'd be caught, but Millie deserved answers. I knelt by the shed, the earth soft where he'd worked. My shovel bit shallowly, fear urging caution. I didn't want him to know I'd been here. Dirt gave way, and my breath caught, a flash of red. I dropped the shovel, digging with my hands, my pulse roaring. It was Millie's red collar, the one she'd worn before the blue, scratched and caked with soil. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream, but I needed proof. 2 collars, both buried, both hers. Reed hadn't just found them, he'd hidden them. Why? Where was Millie? I clutched the red collar, tears blurring my vision. Millie, what did he do to you? I whispered, my voice breaking. The collars were a trail, but to what? I scanned the yard, the other dig spots taunting me. Were there more? Something worse. I wanted to keep digging, to tear his yard apart, but a car engine rumbled nearby. Panic surged. I smoothed the dirt, grabbed both collars, and fled to my house, my chest heaving. Inside, I locked the door, the collars on my kitchen table, like evidence in a crime I couldn't yet name. Reed's truck pulled in minutes later, his lanky frame disappearing into his house. I watched through the blinds, my mind racing. The circle, the collars, his secrecy, it all pointed to something deliberate. But what? Was Millie gone? Or was she out there, needing me? I couldn't bear the thought, but I couldn't stop either. I called Claire, my voice trembling. Claire, I found Millie's collars, both of them, buried in Reed's yard. Judith, she said, her tone gentle but firm. You went into his yard? That's trespassing. You're grieving, but this is too far. It's not grief, I snapped. He's hiding something. Why bury her collars? Why dig every night? She sighed. Maybe he found them, did in readiness. Judith, I'm worried about you. Come over, let's talk. I hung up, frustration burning. No one believed me, but the collars were real. Reed was hiding something, and I'd find it, even if I had to dig up his entire yard myself. Tonight, I'd watch again, closer, smarter. He wouldn't bury my cat or his secrets without a fight. The red and blue collars of my missing cat Millie, both buried in Mr. Reed's backyard, sat on my kitchen table like a silent accusation. My hands still trembled from sneaking into his Dovetail Creek yard, unearthing the second collar near his shed, part of the chilling circle he dug nightly. Claire's dismissal, calling me paranoid, urging me to let go, only fueled my resolve. Reed wasn't just eccentric, he was hiding something, and Millie's absence was tied to his midnight rituals. I needed proof, something the sheriff couldn't ignore, but the collars alone weren't enough. I dialed the Dovetail Creek Sheriff's office, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. Sheriff, it's Judith Monroe. My cat's missing, and I found her collars buried in my neighbor's yard. He digs every night, hiding things. I think he's involved. The deputy, young and bored, sighed. Ma'am, it's just a cat. Cats lose collars. Maybe he found 'em, buried 'em, so they wouldn't clutter his yard. Both collars, I snapped, gripping the phone. Buried in different spots. He's digging a pattern, deputy. Every night, same time. Ms. Monroe, he said, his tone patronizing. We can't investigate a neighbor for gardening. Check the shelters. File a report if you want, but don't expect a raid over a cat. I hung up, fury boiling. Just a cat. Millie was my family, her purr's my anchor since my husband's death. The sheriff's brush-off felt like betrayal, but I wouldn't stop. That evening, a knock startled me. Reed stood on my porch, holding a tin of store-bought cookies, his thin frame looming, his eyes catching the blue collar hanging by my door. My stomach twisted. Evening, Ms. Monroe, he said, his voice smooth, almost too calm. Thought I'd be neighborly. It's easy to lose things, isn't it? I forced a tight smile, my hand on the door frame. Sometimes we find what's been buried. His gaze lingered on the collar, a flicker of something. Anger, fear, crossing his face before he smiled again. You should keep your windows locked, Ms. Monroe. People around here forget. He handed me the cookies and left. His words a subtle threat, chilling my bones. I locked every window, my heart racing. Reed knew I was watching, maybe even suspected I'd trespassed. The collars were a warning, and his visit was a line drawn. I couldn't wait for the sheriff or Claire's pity. I needed to know what he was burying, what that circle meant. That night, I watched from my kitchen, notebook ready. At 12:32 a.m., Reed appeared, flashlight in hand, digging near the fence, another point in his eerie circle. I made a decision. While he was distracted, I'd check his shed. I waited until he moved to the far corner, his back to the shed. With a flashlight and a crowbar from my garage, I slipped through the fence, my pulse hammering. The shed door was padlocked, but the crowbar pried it open with a soft crack. Inside, the air was musty, shelves lined with tools and soil bags. My light swept the floor, landing on a patch of loose dirt near the back. I knelt, digging with my hands, and hit something hard, a metal lockbox, heavy and cold. I tugged it free, my breath shallow. It was locked, but I couldn't leave it. I carried it back to my house, locking my door, my hands shaking as I set it on the kitchen table. Reed was still digging, oblivious. Using the crowbar, I pried the box open, the lid creaking. My heart stopped. Inside was a collection, dozens of pet collars, chewed toys, rusted tags, each etched with names: Rusty, Bella, Max, neighborhood pets. Some I remembered, others long gone. A tag from Claire's old dog, Scout, glinted in the light, missing since last year. Millie's tags weren't there, but the truth hit like a blow. Reed had been stealing pets for years, burying their traces in his yard. I sank into a chair, nausea rising. "Why Reed?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Was Millie gone? Or was she alive, hidden somewhere? The collars and toys were trophies, proof of a sick obsession. But the circle, the nightly digging, what was he still hiding? I wanted to call the sheriff, but the deputy's dismissal echoed. I needed more, something undeniable. The next morning, I hid the lockbox under my bed, the collars haunting me. Reed's truck was gone, giving me time to think. I called Tanya, a retired paralegal friend from church. Her sharp mind, my last hope. "Tanya, I need you," I said, my voice low. "My neighbor's stealing pets, burying their things. I found a box, collars, tags, toys. Millie's gone, and I think he's doing worse." Tanya's voice was calm but firm. "Judith, that's serious. You trespassed, so we can't use the box yet. But if he's digging nightly, there's more in that yard. Get photos, timestamps. I'll call a friend at the county, someone who'll listen." "Photos won't be enough," I said, my throat tight. "He threatened me, Tanya. He knows I'm close." "Then be smarter," she said. "Set up a camera, catch him in the act. I'll dig into his history, see if he's done this before." I bought a cheap trail camera from Amos's hardware store, avoiding his questions. That night, I mounted it in my yard, aimed at Reed's, recording his 1:04 a.m. dig. He buried another small bag, his movements hurried, glancing toward my house. My skin crawled. He suspected me. The camera caught it all, but I needed what was in those holes. Were there more collars? Or bodies? The thought made me sick, but I couldn't stop. I showed Tanya the footage. "This is good," she said, eyes narrowing. My contact found Reed's name in a Portland case. Missing pets? No charges. He moved here after. "We're building a case, Judith, but don't go near his yard again. If he's dangerous, you're at risk." "Dangerous?" I asked, my voice shaking. "He took Millie, Tanya. I can't wait." "You will," she said sharply. "One wrong move, and he walks. Promise me." I nodded, but my resolve burned. Reed's threat, his cookies, the lockbox. They were pieces of a puzzle, and Millie was at its center. I'd watch, record, wait. But if I saw a chance, I'd dig again. Reed thought he could scare me, hide his crimes in the dark. He didn't know I'd lost too much to back down. Millie's purr, my home, my peace. He'd taken them, and I'd take his secrets, no matter the cost. The lockbox under my bed, filled with pet collars, toys, and tags from Dovetail Creek's missing animals, was a chilling confirmation of Mr. Reed's crimes. My cat Millie's absence, her collars buried in his yard, fueled my resolve. But Tanya's warning, "Don't go near his yard," kept me cautious. Reed's subtle threat, his lingering gaze on Millie's collar by my door, told me he was watching. The trail camera I'd set up caught his nightly digging. Another small bag buried in his eerie circle. But it wasn't enough. I needed undeniable proof to make the sheriff act. Something to tie him to Millie and the other pets. Tanya was building a case, digging into Reed's past. But I couldn't wait. Every night he dug, my fear for Millie grew. I remembered Millie's favorite hiding spot, a dense patch of ferns near the fence, where she'd crouch, tail twitching, watching Reed's yard. It was perfect for a hidden camera, close enough to capture details without trespassing. At dusk, with Reed's truck gone, I crept outside, my heart pounding, and nestled a second trail camera among the ferns, its lens aimed at his digging spots. "For you, Millie," I whispered, adjusting the angle. Back inside, I locked my doors. Reed's words, "You should keep your windows locked," echoing like a warning. That night, I watched from my kitchen, blinds cracked, as Reed appeared at 12:58 a.m. The first camera recorded his silhouette, spade in hand, but the fern camera's feed, streamed to my laptop, showed more. He knelt near the shed, digging a shallow hole, then pulled a bag from his coat. My breath caught as he poured something into the hole. Small pale shapes glinting in his flashlight's beam. Bones, not one or two, but dozens, tiny and fragile, like those of cats or small dogs. He covered them quickly, smoothing the dirt, his movements frantic, glancing toward my house. I gripped the table, nausea rising. "Millie," I gasped, tears burning. Were those her bones? Or others from his lockbox of trophies? The footage was clear, his face visible, the bones unmistakable. This wasn't just theft. Reed was killing pets, burying their remains in that cursed circle. My hands shook as I saved the video, my mind racing. The sheriff had dismissed me before. "It's just a cat." But this was evidence they couldn't ignore. I called Tanya at dawn, my voice trembling. "Tanya, I got him." The camera caught Reed pouring bones into a hole. Small bones, like pets. "It's on video." "Judith," she said, her tone sharp. "You didn't go into his yard again, did you?" "No," I said. "I used a camera in my yard." "It's clear. His face, the bones, everything." She exhaled. "Good. Don't send it from your address. He might be watching. Bring it to me. My friend at the county sheriff's office will take it seriously, but we'll submit it anonymously to protect you." I drove to Tanya's, an hour away. The USB drive, with the footage burning a hole in my purse. Reed's truck was parked when I left, his curtains drawn. Had he seen me adjust the camera? Tanya met me at her door, her face grim as she watched the video. "This is enough," she said, copying the file. "My contact, Deputy Harris, isn't like that lazy kid you talked to. I'll send it from my address, no trace to you." "What about Millie?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Those bones?" "We don't know yet," Tanya said gently. "This gets the police moving. They'll search his yard. Judith, hold tight." Back home, I waited, the collars and lockbox hidden. My nerves frayed. Reed dug again that night, the camera catching another bag, more bones. I didn't sleep, my eyes glued to the feed, fear and hope warring inside me. Was Millie in those holes? Or was she alive, caged somewhere? The uncertainty was a knife, twisting deeper each day. 2 days later, Tanya called. "Harris got the footage. They're taking it seriously, Judith. They're getting a warrant to search Reed's property. Stay low. He doesn't know it's you, but he's not stupid." "Will they find Millie?" I asked, my voice small. "They'll find answers," she said. "That's what we've got." I nodded, though she couldn't see, and hung up. The wait was agony. I avoided Reed, keeping my curtains shut, but his presence next door was suffocating. That evening, he knocked again. No cookies this time. I didn't answer, watching through the peephole as he lingered, his eyes scanning my porch, landing on Millie's collar by the door. "Ms. Monroe?" he called, his voice low. "You there?" He waited, then left, his footsteps heavy. My heart raced. He knew I was close, maybe sensed the net tightening. The next morning, police cars lined our street. I watched from my window, my breath shallow, as Deputy Harris and 3 officers approached Reed's house. He answered the door, his face calm, but his hands twitching. Harris handed him a paper, a warrant, I hoped, and the officers moved to his backyard. I clutched Millie's collars, praying they'd find her, alive, or I couldn't finish the thought. Tanya arrived, standing with me as we watched. "They're digging," she said, her hand on my shoulder. "Your footage did this, Judith. You fought for her. What if she's—" I trailed off, tears falling. "Then he pays," Tanya said, fierce, "for all of them." Hours passed, the police methodical, digging each spot in Reed's circle. They found bones, bags of them, small and brittle, just like the footage. Reed stood by, his face unreadable, but his shoulders slumped as they loaded evidence bags into a van. Harris approached my porch later, his face somber. "Ms. Monroe, we got your tip through a third party. We've found remains, pets, likely dozens. We're testing them. Reed's in custody for questioning." "And Millie?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He hesitated. "No cat remains yet, but we're searching his house, the shed. If she's alive, we'll find her." I nodded, numb. The bones weren't Millie's, not yet, but the collars, the lockbox, the footage proved Reed's guilt. He'd stolen pets, killed them, buried their traces for years. Why? A sick compulsion. The circle's purpose eluded me, but the police were digging deeper, and I'd sparked it. I looked at Tanya, her eyes steady. "What now?" I asked. "We wait," she said. "But he's not walking away. You did right, Judith." I held Millie's collars, hope flickering. If she was gone, Reed would pay. If she was alive, I'd find her. Either way, his secrets were unburied, and I'd keep fighting. For Millie and every pet he'd taken from Dovetail Creek. The sight of police cars lining our Dovetail Creek street, digging up Mr. Reed's backyard, was both a victory and a wound. My hidden camera had captured him, pouring pet bones into his chilling circle of holes, forcing the sheriff to act after dismissing me. "It's just a cat." Deputy Harris's words lingered. Dozens of pet remains found. Reed in custody, but no sign of Millie yet. I clung to her collars, the lockbox of neighborhood pet relics hidden under my bed, my heart torn between hope and dread. Tanya's steady presence kept me grounded, but Reed's arrest was only the beginning. I needed justice. For Millie, for all the animals he'd taken. The next morning, news spread like wildfire. Reed, the quiet neighbor with the midnight shovel, was a former animal shelter worker from Portland, fired 5 years ago for suspected animal abuse. Charges had been dropped for lack of evidence, letting him slip into Dovetail Creek unnoticed. The revelation hit our small town hard. Families gathered at the sheriff's station, clutching photos of lost pets, cats, dogs, even a rabbit, demanding answers. Claire, my neighbor who'd called me paranoid, arrived in tears, holding a tag from her dog scout, found in Reed's lockbox. "Judith," she said, hugging me. "I'm so sorry, you were right." I nodded, my throat tight. "I just want Millie," I said, my voice breaking. Claire's guilt mirrored the town's shock. Reed had preyed on our trust, our pets, for years. Deputy Harris called a community meeting at the town hall, the room packed with angry, grieving faces. He stood at the podium, his voice steady. "We've identified remains from at least 20 pets," he said, holding up a list. Collars, tags, and toys from Ms. Monroe's evidence match missing animals reported over 3 years. "Reed's not talking, but we're charging him with animal cruelty and theft. We're still searching for living animals." A woman in the back stood, her voice shaking. "My cat, Bella, vanished last summer. Her collar was in that box. Did he kill them all?" Harris hesitated, his jaw tight. "We don't know yet. Some remains are recent, others older. We're testing DNA. If any pets are alive, we'll find them." I gripped Tanya's hand, my mind on Millie. Her collars, buried in Reed's yard, were proof he'd targeted her, but no bones matched her description. Was she caged somewhere? Or gone? Like Bella. I wanted to scream, to shake Reed until he confessed. But he was in a cell, silent. Harris approached me after, his eyes kind. "Judith, your footage broke this open. We found a hidden room in his basement. Cages, but empty. We're checking properties he's linked to." "Cages," I whispered, hope flickering. "Could Millie be? We're looking," he said. "You gave us a start." The town rallied, neighbors bringing me coffee, casseroles, apologies for doubting me. Amos, from the hardware store, hugged me, his voice gruff. "You're a damn hero, Judith. Should have listened." "I'm no hero," I said, clutching Millie's collars. "I just want her back." Days later, the sheriff's office released a report. Reed's circle wasn't random. Each hole marked a burial, a ritual of control, his twisted way of keeping the pets he stole. The lockbox was his trophy case, collars and tags collected like medals. Claire's scout, Bella, others, families claimed their relics, holding memorials in backyards. I joined them, lighting a candle for Millie, my hope dimming, but not dead. Tanya dug into Reed's past, finding a pattern, similar complaints in 2 other towns, never prosecuted. "He's a predator," she said. "You stopped him." The community's gratitude grew, and at a town council meeting, they proposed a tribute. "Judith," the mayor said, her voice warm, "you gave us truth. We want to honor you and Millie with a community garden, Millie's Garden, for healing, for remembrance." I blinked back, tears, stunned. "I don't know what to say," I stammered. "Millie's not just a cat, she's my family." "We know," the mayor said, smiling. "That's why it's her name." The garden broke ground. A week later, on a lawn near the creek, neighbors planted roses, lavender, catnip, Millie's favorite. Claire helped me sow seeds, her hands gentle. "This is beautiful, Judith," she said. "She'd love it." "She's still out there," I said, my voice firm. "I feel it." Claire nodded, no pity this time. "Then we'll keep looking." Reed's trial loomed, charges piling up, animal cruelty, theft, even trespassing for sneaking into yards to lure pets. Families testified, holding up collars, their grief a chorus. I spoke last, Millie's collars in my hands. "He took our trust," I said, my voice steady. "He took our family. Don't let him take our peace." The judge sentenced him to 7 years, a small victory, but his silence on Millie's fate gnawed at me. After the trial, Harris called. "Judith, we searched a storage unit Reed rented. No live animals, but we found more tags. One might be Millie's, silver, heart-shaped. Can you check?" I rushed to the station, my heart pounding. The tag was hers, engraved with Millie in tiny script. I clutched it, tears falling. "Where is she?" I asked. "We don't know," Harris said, his voice heavy. "The unit had food, water bowls, recent. He might have kept some alive, moved them. We're chasing leads." I nodded, hope reigniting. Millie could be alive, hidden, waiting. The garden's opening was the next day, and I wore her tag on a chain, a promise to find her. Neighbors filled the space, planting, laughing, healing. A plaque read, "Millie's Garden, for Judith's courage." I spoke briefly, my voice thick. "This is for Millie, for all our pets. Thank you for believing me." Tanya hugged me after, her eyes fierce. "You changed this town, Judith. Reed's done, and we'll find her." I looked at the catnip swaying in the breeze, Millie's spirit there, urging me on. Reed was caged, his secrets exposed, but my fight wasn't over. Somewhere, Millie's purr waited. I'd search every lead, knock on every door, until I brought her home to Dovetail Creek, to her garden, to me. Have you ever stood alone when no one believed you, only to be proven right? Comment, "Truth wins" below. I want to hear your story. And don't forget to hit subscribe if this got your heart racing. The opening of Millie's Garden, with its catnip and roses, was a bittersweet triumph. Reed's arrest, the exposure of his years-long cruelty as a former animal shelter worker, and the recovery of collars and tags from Dovetail Creek's lost pets, brought closure to many. but holding Millie's silver heart-shaped tag, found in Reed's storage unit, I felt both hope and ache. Deputy Harris's words, recent food and water bowls, no live animals, kept me searching for my cat, believing she might still be out there. The town's gratitude, etched in the garden's plaque, warmed me, but Reed's silence on Millie's fate fueled a quiet fire. His backyard, that chilling circle of buried bones, haunted my dreams. I wasn't done with him or his land. Months passed, and Reed's house, seized after his conviction, went to auction. His 7-year sentence for animal cruelty and theft felt too light, but his property, tainted by his crimes, was a scar on Dovetail Creek. I'd saved modestly since my husband's death, and Millie's garden had sparked donations. Some quietly slipped to me by neighbors. When the auction notice appeared, I saw a chance, not just to heal, but to reclaim. I bid every cent I had, my heart pounding as the gavel fell. The house was mine. Reed's domain, where he'd stolen Millie and countless pets, was now in my hands. "Judith, you sure about this?" Tanya asked, her paralegal's skepticism sharp as we stood on Reed's porch, the key cold in my palm. Her work had helped convict him, and her friendship kept me steady. "I'm sure," I said, my voice firm. "He doesn't get to keep this place, even in memory." She nodded, her eyes fierce. "Then make it yours. Erase him." I walked the backyard, the grass patchy, the shed still standing, the circle of holes where Reed buried bones, where I'd found Millie's collars, was gone, filled by police. But the soil felt heavy, alive with grief. I hired a contractor the next day, a gruff local named Pete, who'd lost a dog to Reed. "What's the plan, Ms. Monroe?" he asked, his voice rough with respect. "Bulldoze it," I said, pointing to the yard. "Every inch, then we plant." Pete's eyes widened. "Plant what?" "Cherry blossoms," I said. "One for every pet he took. 20 trees, maybe more." He grinned, a rare softness. "That's a hell of a statement." "It's not just a statement," I said, my throat tight. "It's a promise." The bulldozers came at dawn, the roar shaking the neighborhood. Claire, Amos, and others watched from their yards, some joining me, their hands on my shoulders. The earth churned, erasing Reed's circle, his secrets, his control. I held Millie's tag, whispering, "This is for you." The contractor leveled the shed, the fence, every trace of his ritual. By dusk, the yard was raw, open, ready to be reborn. Planting began the next week. I worked with neighbors, each tree a memorial. Claire planted one for Scout, her hands trembling. "You gave him back to me, Judith," she said, dirt smudged on her cheek. "This tree, it's him." I hugged her, tears pricking. "They're all here now." Amos dug a hole for Bella, another lost cat, his gruff voice soft. "Never thought I'd thank you for being stubborn, Judith. This is right." We planted 22 trees, one for each pet named in the sheriff's report, plus 2 for those unclaimed. Millie's tree went in last, near where I'd found her collars. I knelt, pressing her tag into the soil before covering it. A quiet vow to keep searching. "You're not forgotten," I whispered. The final touch was a wooden sign, carved by Pete's brother, a local craftsman. I placed it at the yard's edge, where the cherry blossoms would bloom come spring. Its words, burned deep, read, "This soil remembers everything." Neighbors gathered as I hammered it into the ground, their silence heavy with pride, grief, and healing. Claire squeezed my hand. "It's perfect," she said. "He can't touch this." I nodded, my chest tight. "He never will." The house itself was another matter. I didn't live in it, too many ghosts, but I renovated it, stripping Reed's presence. The walls, once his, became bright, open, a space for community. I turned it into a satellite for Millie's garden, a place for pet owners to meet, share stories, heal. Volunteers ran workshops, teaching kids about animal care, while I kept searching for Millie, following leads from Harris. A tip about a Portland shelter, linked to Reed's old contacts, had me driving weekly, checking every tabby, calling her name. "Judith, you ever gonna stop?" Tanya asked one evening, sitting in my old house, now quieter, without Millie's purr. "Not until I know," I said, my fingers tracing Millie's tag on its chain. "She's out there, or she's not. Either way, Reed doesn't win." Tanya smiled, fierce. "He didn't. Look at this town. You rebuilt it." She was right. Dovetail Creek had changed. Neighbors checked on each other, shared tips on pet safety, planted more in Millie's garden. The cherry blossoms, still saplings, promised a spring of pink, a living defiance of Reed's cruelty. But late at night, alone, I'd walk the new yard, the sign's words, "This soil remembers everything," echoing. It wasn't revenge, not really. It was justice, quiet and fierce. For Millie, for Scout, for every pet Reed stole. Harris called one morning, his voice cautious. "Judith, we got a lead. A farm outside Salem, tied to Reed's cousin. They found cats, some matching descriptions. Can you come?" I drove, Millie's tag around my neck, hope and fear tangled. The farm was small, the owner nervous, claiming Reed stored animals there. I walked the cages, calling Millie, my voice raw. A tabby stirred, green eyes meeting mine, but her tag was gone, her fur matted. Was it her? I knelt, tears falling, unsure but clinging to possibility. Back home, I stood among the cherry blossoms, the sign glowing under moonlight. Reed was gone, his house mine, his secrets uprooted. The soil remembered, and so did I. If Millie was that tabby, I'd bring her here. If not, her tree would bloom, her name eternal. Either way, I'd won, and Dovetail Creek would never forget. Sometimes justice doesn't shout. It roots itself deep and blooms where no one expected. Have you ever experienced quiet revenge? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe if you believe that even the smallest voices can shake the ground beneath them.